Today we are reading Had an I Don't Work Here Lady moment while telling an I Don't Work Here Lady story, switching it up, and I must be the auto part story mechanic. The timestamps are in the description. Subscribe for more videos like these and I trust you to reach 20 likes for this video. Let's do this. Had an I Don't Work Here Lady moment while telling an I Don't Work Here Lady story. From 2010 and 2014, I worked a walk-in, a 15 minutes a cut quick style salon in the largest shopping center of an extremely small town. The salon was located 2 doors down from Dollar Store, and for this story in particular. We also shared a parking lot with Walmart on one end and 4 fast food restaurants on the other end, all subject for different stories. Being on medicated ADHD, I completed my haircuts with speed and accuracy, all the while chatting up with clients, not just mine, doing chores and making store runs for the older girls. And anytime you wear an apron to a store with an apron in a uniform, you will get mistaken for an employee. Doesn't matter that the store's apron is bright green and mine is glitter black vinyl and zebra stripe, or my favorite parsley, one tight diagram. And one such day, I was standing in the back of the line at checkouts, arms filled with candy, using my incredibly vivid apron as a sling to carry a verified crap ton of super cheap junk food. I turned to look for the child wailing in the distance of the store and confirm it was a fit and not abuse. Child of a social worker, it's where my brain goes. And when I turned back to face the line, I found the elderly, lovely lady in front of me chuckling to herself. She met my eyes, saying, "I just did a cartoon like triple take when I saw you behind me." And she giggles a little. I saw the apron when I looked for the crying baby. I started to turn back around to ask you something and realized your apron was not the uniform. But then I had to really look at your apron, and I think my daughter-in-law, who is a beauty operator, the correct term in the 50s, who loved it. I thanked for her compliment and wrote the name of the website I got the apron from down for her. And she chuckled again and almost mistaking me for an employee. I told her it happens every other time I come in here, but most people are pretty nice when I tell them I don't work here. But I'm here often enough, I could probably find it anyway. She tells me that very sweet, and then her eyes dart toward my shoulder, and I realize someone has been clearing the hurt throat behind me for some time. And I thought it was the next customer until she tapped my shoulder. I turned, arms filled with a diabetic coma, and she stepped back, already turning red, realizing her mistake. She starts apologizing. The woman in front of me laughs so hard she has to lean on the counter for support, and I try to explain to the Karen what we had just been talking about as she looks mortified. I explained the woman is laughing at the irony for her mistake, and I politely asked what she was looking for in the first place and sent her in that direction. She, again, apologizes and takes me profusely backing away. The lady in front and I start giggling to herself for both our transaction, and she came back to the salon with me and left me a $20 bill too for my style, good attitude, and how I handled myself. She was one of my regulars until I left some years later. Switching it up to I don't work here, sir. I don't really know where to put this one, as technically it has a I don't work here story, but it's a little different as it was very intentional and I was the one mistaking someone for working somewhere. Now, just a word or two before the story. I am happy with what I did, and this might make me a jerk, but I don't regret it. So one of my closest friends worked for Walmart, and I met him when I worked there too. The job was god awful. I might do a story on my last day working there, as it probably belongs on Reddit, and I will save a description of my friends as it makes for better comedic effect. Now, I personally recommend this sort of action, despite it being slightly rude and, well, I will just tell the story. You decide. Now, the story. So despite my Uter Digest and despising of the local Walmart due to my own short employment there, it's the best location for buying specific things like what I needed, like soap and new headphones. And while I'm there, I get to talk to my friend, which I'm not going to describe just yet, but let's call him Ted. On this specific trip, I was there for headphones and stopped to see Ted, who was not very happy at all due to what appeared to be the mother of all elitist Karens in the store at the moment, causing trouble and yelling at him and others. Something about piercings and tattoos? I got a funny idea, and didn't know exactly how effective it would be, but I got him to play along. He didn't even have to do very much outside his normal routine. So I approached the woman looking a little lost, and I have no idea why this Karen was here. Older, lots of jewelry including a fat heavy golden cross. She looked like the very definition of holier than thou. And apparently she had been making quite a ruckus when the peasant workers could not help her to her exact request. I honestly didn't know why she was in Walmart, but she was about to get a reason to not come back. I tapped her on the shoulder, not just a tap, but a heavy, "Let me speak to your manager," super entitled tapping. She turned to me like she was about to pop a blood vessel, and in my best annoyed voice I speak, "Ma'am, I've been waiting for 5 minutes. Where are the headphones?" She practically fronted at the mouth mid-aneurysm and started to explode into something I think was supposed to be English, but I just waved her off dismissively and continued, "You need to learn to treat your customers better. I asked 5 minutes ago and still no one is helping me." After a little while longer, she finally managed to get off something about audacity. Something hates you. Something, and finally she doesn't work in this horrid place. I just scoff. "What do you mean you don't work here? Look at you. Dime store necklace, dollar store clothes, and your haircut. You look like an angry lesbian. And of course you work here. I mean, just look around. You fit in perfectly." I point at my Ted, my mental head friend, trashing his 2.5 foot long head of hair savagely to some song called "Blood for the Blood God," wearing his kilt, both hands in devil horns, pausing his whiplash-inducing head banging to screech with his tongue out, all his pagan jewelry flashing, and he let out a long, inhuman speech. Needless to say, the woman simply overloaded and horribly offended. She left the store either having a stroke or trying to use some old Latin exorcism incantation at us. Me and my friend had a good laugh, and he didn't get into trouble, and no one came to talk to me about it. So yeah, I may have been a bit rude, and judge me if you like, but she was giving my friend a hard time and the store could not really punish me. So I jumped at the chance to intentionally pretend like I thought she worked there just to take her down a peg. I must be the auto parts store mechanic that only specializes in one brand of car. A little background, I recently started working for a dealership as a lube tech, the people that inspect your car, rotate tires, etc. And had just gotten my uniforms, which say the brand of the auto manufacturer after a month of working there. I wore them during my shift and kept them on because I was exhausted and didn't want to change back into my auto clothes. I also had to get some parts for my car, and seeing as the dealership doesn't normally stock parts specific for my car, it being a different make. I drove about 20 minutes towards home and the shop, and I picked up a pizza and drink from my shop across the street and drove over to the auto parts shop and left my car running with the pizza staying hot in the car. I head inside and grab what I need for the project, rotors and brakes. The car I have seems to run them down quickly for some reason. And as I collect my items, after ringing them up, a lady walks in, your typical Karen, with the acrylic nails, speaking to your manager haircut and some god-awful neon yellow stilettos, covered head to toe in what I assume is designer clothes. I have no idea for sure, but some gator probably died to make her into her handbag. She approached the counter and proceeded to ask some fairly simple questions. How much for this? Does this exist for my car, etc. And the guy at the counter sighed and tried at best he could to narrow down her question to simple yes and no answers. But before he could shut in her request, her Karenzenator gazed and looked at me, and she walked towards me, noticing I had some shiny parts for my car and must have assumed I worked there for some reason. The conversation was really interesting, shall we say. K for Karen, me for me, and CG for the counter guy. Hey, you must know a thing or two about cars, right? Yeah, I can maybe answer a couple of questions, but the guy at the counter probably knows more than I do. Well, he was taking too long and you seem sure enough to help me out with my car. Oh, ma'am, I have all the information you need and I can look. Be quiet, you old bag. I have your mechanic right here and he's gonna fix my car for me. What? I'm not a mechanic, but I can give you a rough diagnosis about what might be wrong with your car. Pfft. Well, of course you're a mechanic. Only mechanics wear those shirts. You're wearing X company's uniform, so you must know how to fix those cars. So you can definitely fix mine. Well, I'm a lube tech. I replace your oil in your car, and I don't necessarily need. Look, you're gonna fix my car, or I will have your manager fire you. And I look at the counter guy. Well, you heard her, Robert, not his actual name. I'll be inspecting the car to make sure it's in peak condition. Now the counter guy catches into my plan. Please, take your time. She needs all the help she can get. Following the conversation, I walk outside, toss my rotors and brakes in the car, and take a look at her car. It happened to be the mother of all Karen mobiles, a Chevy Suburban, with third row seating for all her little spawn and co to ride in style. For some reason, my truck doesn't want to go, like the engine will grow like this. But it just doesn't go for some reason. Alright, well, start it up and let me see what I can figure out. Now, Karen opts in, starts the vehicle, and tries to revving it like she's gonna bounce out of here. Miss, that's the last thing you want to do is rev the car in park. It can cause damage to the drivetrain. So, I need to make sure you hear the noises so I'm not crazy. She then proceeds to get out so I can look inside from the driver's perspective. With what had happened, she left the parking brake on, fully engaged, and was wearing it and the braking system out, probably the drivetrain as well. Did you put on your parking brake when you got here? Well, duh, I can't leave the car without it in park. Let me elaborate. Did you engage the emergency brake when you parked here? What's an emergency brake? You're kidding, right? Did you do that in driver's ed? It's a fail-safe brake if your car is parked on a hill or somewhere to prevent the car from rolling if the parking brakes fail. So what are you trying to tell me? I'm assuming you had the parking brake fully engaged and you were driving around with it. From the sound of it, the emergency brake is probably destroying your car, the drivetrain, and more. The best guess is that your parking brake is still working, but just barely enough to keep your car holding. Well then, can you fix it for me? And me, I'm just laughing to myself. Ma'am, that requires a shop to access that kind of work. And this auto parts store doesn't have a bay that anyone could work in. As I said before, I'm a lube tech and I don't have the proper training to deal with this kind of issue. Are you saying you won't help me? How dare you leave a helpless woman without a car? Oh, you have a working car. You just need to bring it in for service. Absolutely not! I demand you fix my car, or I'm telling your boss that you should be fired for breaking my car. At this point, the auto parts store was closing. Doors locked, lights off, etc. And the counter guy was also heading out and saw us chatting and stopped by to see if he could defuse the situation. So, OP, did you find out the problem? Me explaining the situation to him. Now the counter guy, as calmly as he can, Ma'am, your car is in need of dire service. Your vehicle looks within the past few years, so you should be able to bring it for a throughout inspection. Shut the F up! Neither of you are gonna fix my car. I demand to speak to your manager now! Ma'am, we are closed, and this guy doesn't even work here. I bet he doesn't even work on Chevys. But he's a... Lady, piss off. I've had a hell of a day, and I just came to get parts for my car because I know how to work on my car. You broke yours, and you need to have someone fix it. Someone qualified to work on whatever is left on your ride. F both of you! I bet you thoroughly enjoy that. I'm going home to eat my food and sleep. Have a nice night and enjoy your ride home, you absolute fool. After that whole ordeal, I hopped in my car and sped off towards home. I think she also threw something in my car because I heard a ding like a rock bounce off my door. No dance though. She had it coming, and if I recall correctly, I kept the emergency brake fully engaged, just for her amusement. Now that I know the all-important question all regarding this, was the pizza still warm? Yes it was. All 8 pepperoni coated slices of it. Thank you for watching this 8th episode of I Don't Work Here Lady. Remember to like the video if you had fun, subscribe for more videos like these, and let us know in the comments which story was your favorite. Goodbye!